Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Let's Talk with Coach Stone. I am on the road today, and I still wanted to make sure that this happened. So I got a very special guest coming on, um, Louis. Hey, Manny, how you doing? Hey, Jill, how are you? Hello, Darlene. Hello, everybody. We're just waiting for our very special guest to come on. Let's talk with Coach Stone. I got my good friend Louis March coming on from Zero Gun Violence Movement here in Toronto, Canada. So in the meantime, how are you guys doing right now? I know it's been a crazy time for a lot of people, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I think conversations are what we need. Here's Louis right here. Jill said out too, but can join. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We have Louis here. I'm going to tag Louis in. I definitely had to make sure that this conversation happens. Louis, you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but I don't. Your camera's the other way. You got to come back
Okay, this is
around.
not good.
There we go.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I'm out right now, but we had to make sure that this conversation happened. It's a very important conversation that needs to
Yeah,
be had. So
everything's good?
I had to stop everything and make sure that I connect with you.
Okay, cool.
So how you
Can
doing,
you hear
brother?
me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Can you? Okay. Like it's turbulent times,
Yeah,
but there's a lot of opportunity. Today I've done 4 calls already.
wow.
People looking for help,
Yeah,
people looking to support,
right.
people with questions.
Yeah,
So I think it's really relevant, it's really pertinent, it's really important now to sit down and say, where are we today, right now? And where are we going to be going tomorrow? But what do we need to put in place to make sure we have a plan?
mm-hmm.
We just can't be responding to crisis after crisis after crisis.
Right,
We need a lot more than that. So
right.
this is a great opportunity to have this discussion, because
Okay.
there's some very uncomfortable pieces. But if we don't have these discussions, the questions are going to stay there lingering and lingering, lingering,
Mm-hmm.
and just causing more problems later on. So thanks for the
Yeah.
opportunity. And yeah, these are turbulent times, but it's filled with opportunities.
Yeah, well, thanks, Louis. So I'm going to introduce you, Louis. So Louis is the founder of Zero Gun Violence Movement here in Toronto, Canada. It's a group, it's a collaboration of over 50 organizations, all dedicated to ending gun violence and creating safe communities here in Toronto. And I've been working with Louis for about 5 or 6 years. We do all kinds of things, advocacy. We're out here speaking to people. We're connecting different organizations and resources to the people that need them. When we have to, we go and speak to politicians. We're doing all kinds of work here in the city. And I thought Louis is the right person to have right now because he's been in the media. He's always in the media talking about these things. And, Louis is a good friend of mine, and we have these conversations. So thanks again for being on here, Louis. You're a fan favorite. Everybody always wants to hear from Louis. But this is the time that they really want to hear from you. So, what are you hearing here in Toronto on the streets? What are you hearing from Black communities, from the youth? What are you hearing?
So I had a couple calls recently with some young Black youth, and there's a level of anxiety and despair
Right.
that I've never seen before. You mix what's going on in the States with what's going on in Toronto. You mix that with COVID-19 and the fact that they're not as mobile, they're not getting around or speaking with friends, getting out and stuff. You put that all together and it becomes very concerning for a lot of young men who traditionally have problems. Then you put this on top of it. Where do they go for answers? Where do they go for support? Where do they go for services? Who can they trust?
Right.
Who's being honest? Because not everything you're hearing is true.
Right.
Right? So who do you go to? Who can you rely on? Who's got your back? And how can I navigate through this as a stronger, better person? And we don't have that mechanism. And that's why the level of fear and despair and anxiety is increasing on the street. And we just cannot sit down now and be bystanders. We have to engage this population, reach out, and do what we must, because this is not getting any better right now.
No.
But we can position ourselves to at least be part of the solution instead of just being the problem.
So a lot of black youth are just feeling like they're just left out there alone. No resources, no services, nobody to connect to, nobody to go to for answers in the midst of everything that's going on.
No, exactly, because when you have your traditional family with everybody around, there's people there that got your back. But a lot of these young men, right, they're living in tenuous situations already. So it gets more complicated and more compound now. The services and supports that normally are there for them have been shut down. They've been classified as non-essential. Like the people that they could normally go to have pressed the pause button. So what was a bad situation before is a worse situation today. But we have to turn this around. And we have to be out there right now. Like, I'm grounded. Like, I'm physically cannot get around the city. A lot of these young people are in the same situation. So what I'm saying is that you might be grounded physically, but you're not grounded mentally. Right? You're not grounded creatively. Like, you can still do things where you are the driver and not just the passenger, right? So that's the message I'm trying to deliver to them. Physically, you might be grounded. Mentally, you're not. So let's be creative. Let's be innovative. Let's be supportive, right, of each other, so that we can at least hold our ground now and then look at the opportunities to move forward. And the fact that the government has decided that certain things are essential and certain things are not essential, for them to claim that youth services and supports, especially in troubled areas, is non-essential, that to me is criminal.
It is crazy.
It's criminal. And they should be held responsible for that, because the people out there realize the importance of their relationship with this population. They want to do the work, but they're not allowed to do the work.
So Louis, why don't you tell people a little bit about like what's been happening with gun violence in Toronto, and then we'll talk a little bit about that Regis situation. But talk, because some people might not understand what's happening here in Toronto, because we have viewers from the States on here and other places. So tell them a little bit about what's been happening with gun violence in the city of Toronto, Canada, over the last, few months.
Over the last few months, because of COVID and everybody's pressed the pause button, the information is not getting out. In the city of Toronto alone, gun violence victims, people dying from gun violence, has increased over 30%.
Since last year?
Compared to last year. And last year was a terrible year. Over 30% increase, and you have not heard one pipsqueak from any of the politicians about it. Shootings have increased over 20% in the same period of time. And last year was a bad year. And not one pipsqueak from the politicians, right? So it seems as though their focus has been on COVID and COVID and COVID. The news broadcast has been COVID and COVID and COVID, right? Until the recent situation in the States. But at the same time, the supports and services, the spaces where these young people could go, have all been closed down. So when the gun violence takes place, by not talking about it or pretending it's not happening, doesn't mean it's not happening. And that's why we need to be honest with our conversations with this population. We have to understand what's going on, what the needs are, and we have to respond accordingly, right? The focus now is on the brutal murder of George in Minnesota. But there's a certain level of brutality with the gun violence taking place in the city of Toronto that our illustrious mayor has chosen to ignore.
Right.
So we're seeing the damage on the streets. We're hearing it. We're hearing the appeal for help, right? The appeal for supports, the appeal for direction, and the people that we entrust to handle this, to deal with this, have exit stage left.
Quiet.
So that is criminal to me,
Right.
because you've already undermined, you've already written off these communities. Now, when in crisis mode, you've made it even worse.
And Louis,
So
I think
gun
that's a,
violence,
go ahead.
go ahead. No,
No,
so
I
the
think,
gun violence itself has changed. The characteristics of the gun violence in Toronto, in terms of the age of the people involved, the brazenness of the shootings, the caliber of the guns, the access to guns, right? The influence of social media, all these things have changed here in Toronto. And we have not responded accordingly. We're still using the same rules, the same tactics, the same strategies that we used 25 years ago.
right.
We have a premier that has made it clear that he is from the old school, which means that I believe in putting more boots on the ground, more policing,
Right.
right? When we need more supports, where we need more services. His only strategy is more policing. We have a mayor who was one of the greatest supporters of what is known as the broken window policing strategy that was used in New York, which is basically, if we get to the criminals or people breaking the law early, we will prevent them from getting into bigger crimes. So, for example, if you cross the red light, we're going to arrest you. If you spit on the ground, we're going to arrest you. If you throw garbage on the ground, we're going to arrest you. Any small infraction, you would be apprehended. However, that strategy was used as carding and profiling, because the only people that paid the price for that were black kids, brown kids, and people that were in marginalized communities. So we have a mayor that has that in the back of his head, making decisions to deal with this issue. So that's why I question what he is saying and what he is doing. But now I understand the root of where it's coming from. So the gun violence situation, to me, is not the problem. The gun violence situation is a report card on our failure in certain other areas before. So whether it's employment, whether it's education, right, whether it's housing, whether it's poverty, if you fail in these areas, there has to be a violent response. And the report card shows failure in a lot of these areas. And that is why we continue to have this problem.
No, I mean, I think that's great. And I think a lot of people think that, you know, because COVID happened, that all other crimes have stopped. Gun violence has stopped, theft has stopped, robberies have stopped, because when you look at the media, all you see is COVID. But there's still families and communities out here suffering from the results of gun violence. And we'll talk about the whole police thing in a bit. But you're right. The media just doesn't even cover that. So if you turn on the TV, you would think that none of that stuff was even happening, right? In the US or Canada.
So this is why this program is so important. This is why the work that you're doing in terms of using social media and these virtual meetings to make sure that we're discussing the real topics. Right. We've got to keep it real.
Yeah.
And the politicians, we cannot trust to do that. And that's why these programs are so important, because things are happening. People are still living. People are still dying. People are still suffering. But what we've found is, even as gun violence has increased, other forms of criminal activity has also increased. I was just reading a report today that shows commercial robberies have increased also. But nobody's talking about these things.
Right.
If we had kept the services and supports intact, we would have had a fighting chance.
Right. Right.
To arrest these problems. But no, we have shut them all down.
Right.
And we've gone home. You got to be joking.
Right.
Right? So that's why I'm angry, pissed off, similar to what the kids on the street are. Right? You know? It's the only thing that I'm learning how to channel that in a positive way.
Synergy said, protect them by any means necessary. You know, the other thing too, Louis, can we talk a little bit about, you know, the young lady Regis there? Because some people might not know about that situation here in Toronto, Canada. So can you kind of let people know a little bit about that situation and what you've been hearing about that?
Okay, no problem. So what happened with Regis? So first of all, uh, I went to the press conference where the family spoke first about what took place on that fateful day. Uh, I also work with the lawyer, Mr. Neil Singh, who is handling the case. He's a close associate of Zero Gun Violence Movement work, and he's been one of the biggest supporters for what we've been doing across the city for many years. So the facts, as we know, is that a phone call was made by the mother to the police for help in terms of taking her daughter to CAMH, which is a mental health facility that works and supports and provides therapy for people with mental health issues. Clearly, something went wrong here.
Right.
Because the police are saying that they didn't think it was a mental health issue. They thought it was a case of assault with weapons.
Right.
So they classified it as a priority 1 case.
Right.
So priority 1 means anybody in the area, squad cars galore, show up, right? You know?
Right. Right.
And they all showed up. So 8 police officers go to the floor and meet the mother and the daughter.
By the way,
Regis.
this was a young black woman as well. We should make
Yes,
that clear.
29 years of age.
Right.
So they meet them in the hallway, and the situation is diffused.
Okay.
That means it's made clear that this is not an assault, this is no weapons involved,
Right.
this is a mental health issue.
Right.
So she's asking the police to help in getting the daughter to CAMH.
Right.
The daughter says that she needs to go to the washroom.
Right.
So she's allowed to go into the apartment where the washroom is located,
Right.
and 5 police officers follow her. The mother
Okay.
is not allowed in, and the brother is not allowed in. The brother speaks about how aggressive and bullying those police were in preventing the mother and the brother from going in with the daughter.
Right.
So we have 5 police officers in there with Regis. The mother is left outside, the brother is left outside and not allowed to go in.
Mm-hmm.
There's some commotion in the apartment, what I'm hearing, and then the daughter shouts out, "Mom, help me," or something along that. Not 1 time, not 2 times, but 3 times. So something is going on in there.
Right.
So she's appealing now to the mother for help. But she cannot go in because of the police officers blocking her entrance.
Right.
So something happens in there. Next thing, the police officer comes out, runs to the next apartment, saying that she's jumping over the balcony or whatever to the next apartment. And then somebody says, no, she's on the ground.
What floor do
The
they
fact
live
of the
on?
matter, the 24th floor.
Wow.
So she's down on the ground. The fact of the matter is, the mother called for help. This was a call for help, not a call for death.
Right.
But we've had too many situations in the city of Toronto where police have intervened in mental health issues with black people, and it has resulted in a fatality.
Mm-hmm.
So this has really raised the bar in terms of concern about the policing approach, the response that day, because it was ended up in a death situation. The special investigative unit has been employed to investigate.
Yeah, but that's police
But we
investigating other police, right?
exactly, and between 95 and 96% of all the cases that they investigate, the police come out innocent.
Right. Right.
Right? So they're investigating to find out what actually took place. But we can only tell you as fact what happened in the hallway leading up to Regis going inside the apartment.
Right. And why wouldn't the mother be allowed in? The daughter's calling for help. There's 5 police officers in the apartment with her. The mother and the brother aren't allowed in. She's calling for help. So even if she was in some type of state, why wouldn't they just let her mother in to talk to her to calm her down? Next thing you know, they're saying she tried to jump across the balcony, and 20-some stories, she falls or she ends up on the ground or whatever the case may be. there's something strange about that, right?
Anybody with reasonable mind that dealing with people with mental health issues, we know that they require like a safety blanket, a security blanket, somebody that they can trust and communicate with.
Right.
The brother speaks about the aggressive tone that the police were using, right, with her, and preventing them from going in the apartment, right?
But Louis,
We know this.
There's 5 police. How could you even make it there if you have 5 police? There's 5. You know, I don't understand. There's 5 police officers in there,
and there were other police officers in the hallway too.
So how
right?
could you even make it to the balcony?
So this is what we're waiting for the SIU to come out.
Right.
And they normally take 6 months to come up with their responses, right? You know.
Right.
But what I'm understanding now is that they're going to try and expedite it because of the concern by the mayor, the concern by the police chief, and the concern by the public outcry.
Right.
So I understand that something might be said this week about what took place inside the apartment.
Right.
But we know as fact that if that call was not made to the police for help and support, Regis would be alive right now.
Right.
So why is it that a call for help becomes a call for death? Right? So we now have to trust the police to be honest in telling us what took place inside.
Right.
And we have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Because there's something called the blue curtain where the police will not say anything against each other.
Right.
We know that.
Yeah.
They know it. Right? So now we have to wait for the police to tell us what took place inside there.
Right.
No matter what they say.
And did anybody have body cams on?
About it.
And were there any body cameras on?
That's a good question. That was proposed a couple of years ago. There was a pilot project done, and I think 100 police officers were given body cams, and they were going to track to see what came out of it. But we understood the importance of it, because the trust between public and police, in our community especially, is nowhere close to what it should be. Right. The pilot project got finished, and what they established was that in many cases the cameras were not working, they were not turned on, or the footage was misplaced.
Right.
So they were supposed to clean that up and make it an effective process because they realized the importance of it, but it has not been implemented. So to answer your question, it's no.
That's crazy.
So there's no body cam. No, we have to wait on the police to tell us what happened in there, and the SIU is going to take that information and come out and say so on and so on.
Right.
But none of this would have been in question if they had body cams on. So I know the police chief has said he's going to expedite that and he's going to make sure so on and so on. But we do not trust the process unless we're involved in the creation of it.
That's right.
In terms of the handling of the body cams, handling of the footage, and securing them. And then also ensuring that they're on, because it always seems whenever there's a confrontation between the police and the public, the body cam was not on.
And having consequences for people who choose not to turn them on, right? That's the other thing too.
There was no consequence to them, right? So moving forward, there has to be, right? There has to be. So there was many things that went wrong. This is a 29-year-old black woman that had her whole future ahead of her. Right? She was talented in so many areas, and it got snuffed out because of a phone call to a police for help. Right?
Louis, we got some comments. We have some comments here. Stacy Carter said, broken system, this has to stop. Bling said, I'm a mental health worker. What they need is to have people like myself to assist police with these calls. Yes. Synergy said, police are not trained well to deal with mental health. Louis, that's come up time and time again, right?
Of course it's come up. We train police to be the enforcer of the law. We train them how to intimidate, bully, and impose their will on the public in defense of the law. We give them a gun and say we're going to give you discretion to use it. We give you a taser and we give you the discretion to use it depending on the circumstance.
Right.
But we know factually from a report that was just released by the Human Rights Commission that a black person in encounter with a police officer are 20 times more likely to end up in a fatality in death than if the encounter was with a white person.
Wow.
So it's more than the training, it's the system that allows this. And don't tell me that they do not know this, right? Right? They know this. Having an expert with the police would have saved that person's life, would have saved Regis's life.
And that's exactly
why
what they're
on
saying.
Saturday last week, they were expecting 1,000 people to show up, and 10,000 people showed up.
10,000. Wow.
Right? I was there. I saw what was happening on Saturday. I saw the people, right?
So what was the energy like at that? What was it like there with the 10,000 people marching? What kind of energy was there? What was happening?
You know what? The energy was very positive.
Okay.
Right? Regis should be alive right now. We do not trust you as police in these situations.
Right.
We want justice.
Right.
We want support for the family. We want to make sure that this does not happen again to other people.
Right.
We've had so much situations recently where police have been involved in mental health crisis situations, and it has always ended up in death. We have a young person just recently that the same thing happened. They said the same person called the police for help, and he ended up dead. He called for help. The police show up. Some confrontation takes place. They taser the young man. Apparently, he didn't go down. So they decided to shoot him multiple times in his chest.
Right.
Like, how can you trust the system that produces that type of mindset that snuffs out a person's life? These cops think they're God. Not all of them.
No,
but there's a culture. There's a culture out there that says that I am trained to enforce the law. You gave me a gun. I'm going to use it based on my thinking on what I want to do. And when you have a racist mindset behind all of this, where you know that you can get away with it, how can you trust that system?
I'm with you. I get you, man. Synergy said they take washout training. Stacy said exactly how did she even get on the balcony? Stacy also said that alone is strange, especially since they found out she has certain issues. That's right. Eloquent said they are not properly trained to respond and de-escalate situations, right? And we know that. We've been hearing that many, many times. Synergy said when mental health calls are made, there should be a mental health worker on site. Yeah.
But the police chief has acknowledged that.
Right.
But what's happening here, and I've known this for some time, they have a coding system, priority 1, priority 2, and how people respond. If it's coded as a priority 1, and they think it's assault and weapons, like we've had a 13-year-old that broke bail conditions because he was associating with somebody that he wasn't supposed to associate. And somehow it came out as a priority 1 call. 8 police cruisers showed up to apprehend a 13-year-old with a K-9 division.
Wow.
A 13-year-old because he was associating with somebody he wasn't supposed to, that was in the same school that he attended.
Right, right.
We've seen that. Another case that happened in Durham just last year, where a 14-year-old, 9 police cruisers showed up because the mother phoned to ask for help in getting her son back in the house.
Right. And this is why people don't call. This is why people don't call the police.
Well, how can you trust them? How can you make the call if you don't trust them? Yeah. And the same footage, because a young person was filming this one.
Right.
We saw the same maneuvers used by that guy in Minnesota being moved. Used here. Right. With the foot on the neck.
Right.
With the knee on the neck. We saw it. Right. It's out there. And then one kid who is brave and bold says, you can't effing do this. He hasn't done anything. Why are you doing this? Right? They arrested him for swearing. Another 14-year-old. So this is
Yeah.
a policing system. This is a policing culture. This is the way they operate. And they know damn well, right, that a lot of these young people are not going to go public because
Right.
they fear retaliation.
Right.
We have another case right now with a 22-year-old. He was brutalized so badly he has to go to the hospital, right? The hospital, and there was no charges, okay? He's in the hospital. The hospital says, okay, we're going to repair you. There's no damage or whatever. There's no physical damage, but mentally, emotionally, this guy is damaged. He's traumatized.
Right.
He said, Louis, I'm clean. There's no charges. There's no reason for them to do what they did.
Right.
So I went and I said, hold on a second, right? How many times have you been stopped by the police in the last 5 years? Because that's when I met him. He said over 100 times.
Yeah.
I said, stop joking with me, right? You know I'm serious. So I said, let me make it easy for you. How many times have you been stopped in the last year? He said 10 to 11 times. I said, why haven't you not said anything?
Right.
Because he's clean. He's trying to change his life. He's doing a course right now where he needs a clean record to get his license. He says, there's no way I can do anything bad, right? But because they know who I am, because I'm in this neighborhood, I'm a target.
Right.
So how can he ever trust them? His friends that he works with will never trust the police because there's this God mentality, this cop as God mentality. I think it's rampant. I don't think it's bad apples.
No.
Because these kids know that they're going to be jeopardized. They're at risk when they go out.
It's systemic, and I think this is the thing we have to understand about systemic racism and discrimination. It doesn't matter if there's a black person at the top of that system. It's still a system that exists. And a lot of these systems, whether it's the police system, the education system, the government, they're systems that are, it's based on racism and discrimination. So by you saying that, the police chief is black, that makes no difference, right?
It makes no difference here because he's working in a system, in a culture. And these people, the police officer, the police union have already voted that they do not support the work that he's doing.
Right.
Millions of dollars were spent under his leadership to how do we transform the police so that it can gain more trust from the communities.
Right.
A lot of money was done on the consultations to improve the oversight of their work. Millions of dollars were spent, consultations done across the province, right? And the recommendations came out, and they're in a book on the shelf there, because the new premier, Doug Ford, came in, and those recommendations will never see the light of day, right? Because so they know that they've got backative. They know that they've got support for what they're doing. We've got an SIU that I said 95+% of the cases that they investigate where police have an encounter with the public, where an injury takes place, vindicates the police officer. Right? And those are the ones that are reported. Imagine the young black men that are being brutalized by the police that are not even making report because they don't trust the system.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So this is the culture. This is a system in which we're working. So when we see what's happening in the States, right, the only reason we know what happened in the States because it was on film.
Right.
The police report that was filed, even though they know it was on film, was a blatant lie.
Right.
Because they know they can get away with it. But this time, the film came out.
That's right.
So now we know when the whole world is watching America.
That's right.
So Toronto must not think that we don't do it this way. I've been working with police brutality, that issue of police brutality, from the 1970s.
Exactly.
The first case we had was a wife phones the police for help because her husband was being aggressive, but he had mental health issues. The police showed up. 4 of them went up to the 2nd floor where he was, hiding behind a bed mattress, and they shot him dead. Lester Donaldson was his name, right? So they know what they can do. They know what they can get away with. So this system has to change. But as Cornel West said, clearly, the system cannot change itself.
Right. Right.
So where do we stand? So these young people, these young black kids that are afraid, they fear going out. It's not fear from others in the community. Fear that if they have an encounter with the police, what could happen and what recourse they would have.
Right. Wow.
This is criminal.
Man, it's a lot. CP2 brand said the mental health system is broken. Bling said there's only a few trained officers that are trained in mental health. Stacy said the entire system is broken. Synergy said, and the body cam should be voice activated, so it comes on by saying, you know, when anyone says help or anything like that. That's a good suggestion as well. Stacy said they know what they need to do, they just don't do it, right? And like
because they know they can get away with it. They know they can get away with it.
Right. Right.
So where do we go? Where do we go?
Works for you, right? Like, why would I change a system that works for me and my people? Why would I change that, right? Unless I'm forced to change it. And I think that's what's happening with the police system, with the education system. People are just fed up, you know.
And we're at that point right now. And this is the level that, so these conversations that I am having with young people, that level of fear and despair is amplified by what's going on in the States, but also amplified by their personal experiences. Right. And the fact that nobody is listening, nobody is responding, right? Nobody cares, puts them in a higher area of risk, right? And a likelihood of them taking a negative turn in life, right? To survive, right?
And you know what, Louis, and I think this is what, you know, non-melanated people have to understand is that we're just tired. Like you're tired of always, you know, having to think about how you move when you leave your house. And in some cases you see in the States, you can't even, or even here, you can't even be in your house and the police are running up in your house accusing you of something. You know, on your job, you always have to be a certain way. It's like, it's exhausting to always have to be a certain way and always have to be conscious about how you move, right? Like I've had run-ins with the police over the course of my life for, you know, walking somewhere or driving somewhere. And I know what that's like, right? And a lot of people don't think that racism and profiling exists in Canada. I've been reading some comments and they really don't think that it exists in Canada. Like, what would you say to that?
No, that's exactly, like there's something called shopping while being black, driving while being black, right? Going to school while being black. It's a different set of rules.
Right.
And our young people are growing up in this environment. How can they be normal?
Right.
When 24/7 they're watching their back.
Right.
How can they be normal? When the people talks about minor aggression, these are major aggressions.
Right.
Myself, if I go into a shopping store, I know who's going to follow me.
Right.
When I see other people stealing stuff, they're not watched, they're not surveilled.
Right.
I am.
Right.
Right? I can deal with it.
Right.
Right? But these are young bucks, right? You know? Right?
And they shouldn't have to deal with it. They shouldn't have to deal with it. If I want to go to a store, I should be able to go to the store. If I want to go to school without being bothered or harassed by my teacher because you shouldn't have to deal with that. And that's what people don't understand, that this is like years and years of trauma of constantly battling systems that are out to get you. And so when sometimes some of these young people, and when they snap, sometimes it's like, it's almost understandable because you know what they've gone through, right?
Look, it's like, you know, you're on the subway. You're on the subway and you step on somebody's shoe and the person reacts aggressively or violently. That's a trigger. That person could have been boiling to that point, holding back, and that small thing. But we look at it and says, I just stepped on your shoe. Why did you act that way?
Right.
But who looks at how did it get there? What was the cause of it? Right? We're not looking at the full picture.
Right.
We have politicians. We had the premier yesterday saying that we don't have systemic racism in here. And someone says, F you, right? Not someone, many people said that. But these are the people that are making decisions, right? By denying the problem exists. And how can we trust them?
And if you deny it, then how can we address it? Like, and this is the thing, right? If you want to address racism and discrimination from a systemic perspective, you have to be open and honest. You can't say it doesn't exist here. You know, and you hear a lot of companies saying, well, when you ask them, you know, their statistics in terms of their employee breakdown demographics, you know, what percentage are Black or Asian or Indian or whatever, they can give you those numbers. But when you ask, where are they within your organization? They never make it past a manager level or director. You're never going to see them at the top. Toronto's one of the most diverse cities in the world, so you have no choice but to hire a diverse population, right? And so you hear this all the time. So that's all a part of systemic discrimination and racism that people have to understand. You can't just go and say, well, that company has, you know, 2,000 employees and 500 of them are people of color. But where are they within the organization? They're not at the senior management level. They're not on the board, right? And so I think these are some of the things that we kind of have to understand. And a lot of people just don't see it. They don't understand.
Look, we have to talk about how do we move forward, because I'm all problemed out.
Yeah.
Like, I've been around here long enough. I've seen enough. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? I know that there's incredible people doing incredible work.
That's right.
I know there's incredible organizations doing incredible work, but we're not enough. But there's one thing that is totally missing here, is what I now refer to as the silent participants.
Yes.
The ones that know what's going on and are remaining silent. There's a silent participants because they benefit from this, and there's also the silent victims.
Right.
So the victims have to find their voice.
Right.
What you're doing right now is important, critically important, because now we have social media and we can have these discussions.
Right.
Right? And we can bring in those people. Because going the traditional way of resolving this means it's not going to change. The system, as Conor says, the system cannot change itself, clearly, because it doesn't want to. Right? But what do we do for these young men? What do we do for this young population? Because mental health is a result of layers and layers of trauma that has been undiagnosed and not treated, right? So someone's going to be walking around with a smile on their face, but that's just a cover for the internal problems that have not been addressed. And it's a certain population that is experiencing it. And they're the ones that are struggling the most, and those are the ones that are being shut out the most. So where do we go with this? What do we do to give these kids a reason to live and not a reason to die?
Louis, Bishop here said, if I drive beside a police car, I turn into an instant statue, stiff neck, heart racing, hoping they don't pull me over. This is because of past experiences of being pulled over, quote unquote trauma. So, you know, that's, you know.
So we see what's going on. Like, you cannot be driving down the road to go to your family, and because a police cruiser shows up, you get into fear and despair, right? This is not right, right? We're supposed to be able to live, to drive, to go shopping, to go to school, right? To go in the public transportation system and feel safe.
Yeah. Or Ernie said,
and a lot of the population is not.
Ernie said it's a clique. They cover each other and there's no accountability. So Louis, like, what would you tell? Because, you know, I know you've been getting this too. Like, a lot of white people are reaching out saying, like, what can I do? How can I help? How can I be an ally? Like, what would you say to those white people right now who want to be an ally and stand with Black people in the event of everything that's going on? What advice would you give them?
Look, I got a phone call today from someone from Ottawa wanting to help. There's good people out there that want to help, but they don't know how to do it. So this is a legitimate and relevant question at this particular time.
True.
Because what I saw on Saturday were people coming out to say enough is enough.
Right.
We want justice. Black lives do matter.
Right.
And we're going to hold you accountable. So my message to those people is, you need to move away from being a silent participant.
Yes.
To be an active participant in finding a solution.
Right.
So let your actions speak for you in terms of what you're doing. So when you see transgressions taking place, when you see racism in your workplace, when you're seeing it on the street, you can't be a silent participant anymore.
Right.
Right? You have to say right is right and wrong is wrong.
Right.
And the police officers that know what's going on and remaining silent, right? They must also be held accountable. So if you really want to change this, we have to change the way they think, which is being a silent participant is not good enough.
Right.
Being a silent supporter is not good enough, right? Because the violence that is taking place is spreading and it's impacting a lot more people on a more regular basis these days. Toronto is an incredible city.
Mm-hmm.
Toronto is an internationally acclaimed for what we do.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not in the top 10 in international surveys, we are surprised.
Right.
Right? Toronto is rated above New York, Los Angeles, Chicago in most of these international surveys because we do so much right. But when it comes to police brutality, when it comes to gun violence, our mayor has been sleepwalking through this issue and hoping it will go away. He claims that he doesn't have any magic answers. We're not looking for magic answers from you, sir. We're looking for leadership.
But Louis, this is the thing. It starts with having conversations. Where, as leaders, as the mayor, as the police chief, are you going to these communities and having conversations? Right? They're not talking to people. Nobody's asking. Nobody's saying that as a leader you have to come with the answers. Just like white people who want to be allies, we're not expecting you to even know what to say. Just come with questions and listen. Right? That's all it requires. Let me experience what you're experiencing. Let me hear what you're going through. That's all people ask. But no one's asking, that's just an excuse to say, I don't have a magic wand. I can't stop police brutality. I can't stop, gun violence in the city. Nobody says that, right? That's a
No, you're absolutely right, Danny. You're absolutely right. The thing about it is when they meet with the people that they're comfortable with meeting.
Right.
The mayor just had a meeting with the police chiefs
right.
and the mayors of the cities.
Right.
And I'm saying to myself, hold on a second. Didn't you just meet with the mayor of Chicago, where gun violence, as we know, is a major problem there? She said the shift in gun violence declining is because they've made a decision at her office to shift away from the policing first option to community investment and development. And they've seen the number of shootings and gun violence in Chicago. He just met with her. So I'm sure they spoke about
but won't meet with communities here in his own city. Isn't that
No. That's not on his radar, right? Like, look, he's a mayor for some people and he does a fantastic job, but he's not a mayor for all the people. So what I keep saying now is the first word in community safety is community. So the community must step up. And the community is black people and white people. It's a diverse city, as you say.
Right.
So the silent participants now have to become active participants in finding a solution, because the incredible people that are doing incredible work out there, they're going to get burned out, or they're going to get frustrated, and they're going to give up. And I've seen that. Right? We can do better. We must do better, and we will do better. Right. So the situation in the States has now brought not only national attention, but did you see the amount of people that were in Paris that showed up?
In Paris, of all places.
Imagine that. Like right now, there's something being planned in Oakville for tomorrow. There's something that's being planned in Ottawa for Friday, right? There's something that's being planned in Toronto for Saturday. So people are saying enough is enough. We're fed up. Come clean. We can do better, right? This mental health issue, I know the chief has it on his priority list, but we have not seen the results of that because a lot of these cops think they're God. And because they have the gun and they have the legislation for them to use it, that will be their first weapon of use instead of understanding or bringing in the right people. And the right people are there.
Right.
But they think, no, all power is in my hand. I'm going to decide your fate, life or death. And if they say death, you have no fighting chance against it.
And Louis, you and I have had these conversations too. There's no one answer to solve any of this stuff, but it happens by people coming together and having difficult conversations and understanding that, one, first, as a Black community, we're not going to agree on everything, but we have to come together as a collective to make demands of the police and of the government. And that, you know, that's the first thing. And then we can bring other groups into it. But we have to understand that. We have to speak as a collective. You have to speak with your dollars. You have to speak with your votes. You have to make demands, right? That's how you get things
exactly.
done.
I like that. We have to speak with our dollars. We have to speak with our votes, right? There was a petition that was just started today. They're looking for 50,000 signatures about having the body cams in place, right? They were already exceeded at 50,000.
Of course they did.
You see how quickly they so the public has had enough. Right. And they realize that what happened in Minnesota can happen here. And the body
anywhere in the world.
It can happen anywhere. So people are rising up. People are rising. And in this thing about Saturday was critically important. The amount of young people that were out.
Right.
The normal faces that I normally see were unnormally not there. What I saw was a lot of new faces, a new fire, a new energy, and a new leadership. So the tide is changing. So the political leaders will have to change accordingly, because the voting, the dollars, there's ways in which we can influence them, that we can light the fire under their butts, right? You know, this is not a time to be sleepwalking. This is a time to be rolling up your sleeves, right? I don't need another fatality.
No, we don't.
I dread if there's another police fatality in the next couple of days in Toronto.
City might burn
down. I dread
down.
what the reaction will be, right? So let's do better. Let's do better.
And Louis, you know, one of the things that I love about you is you're out here. Like, you're out here in the middle of all of this stuff. You're always available for people. You're always working with the youth. You're always, you know, working with organizations to help them try to move forward, right? And I see your leadership, and I've been seeing your leadership. But you said something interesting, is that a lot of leaders are missing when they're called on the most. In what's happening right now with COVID and all of this police brutality in Canada and in the US, a lot of leaders have disappeared. People that you expect to be there are not there. And you and I have had these conversations many a times. When the cameras are on, they're quick to show up and do their little 5 minutes on the camera, and then you never see them. They're not in the communities. They're not talking to people. They're not advocating for change until, you know, it's time for them to fatten their pockets. And so what do you say about that?
They become part of the system, period. The system cannot change itself, but it can do a good job of recruiting members.
We've seen that.
So the government they've been strategic, you know. Yeah. Like in school, we've talked about it all the time, how they just co-opt these people that they see as a threat to them. So they give them a job, they give them a grant, and that silences them. That's the reality. Right. So everybody's now afraid to say because people know. Right. When I talk about the silent participants, they're in there too.
Yeah, it's not just white people; it's black people as well.
No, of course they know.
And you look at a lot.
They know what's going on. They know the score because I can have a conversation with them.
Look at a lot of community leaders in the U.S. Look at a lot of celebrities that you haven't heard from, and the ones that you have heard from, it's some PR written statement, right? Just to come out because they're forced to say something. And so we need that leadership. We need more people like you. We need more young people out here fighting for justice, fighting to end racism and end these discriminatory systems. And we got to stop depending on, you know, these old leaders who are being paid and props by, you know, different organizations in the government.
We got a major problem here, and that's why I was happy on Saturday, because I saw a new leadership, a new energy. Right. Either these people are worn out, they're burnt out, or are they more protecting of their career and whatever it is within the government. So what I've said to young people, a lot of people are going to come to you and tell you that we're here to talk to you because you guys are our future leaders, and we're helping you prepare you. I tell you, whenever anybody tells you about your future leaders, tell them to F off. Tell them they need to be telling that you need to lead today, right? Because tomorrow will never come. You need to be a leader now. That's right. Right? So whether you're 9 years old, whether you're 19 years old, or whether you're 99 years old, there's no on-off switch in terms of when you can be a leader. A
Yeah.
9-year-old can still be a leader. So what I want them to realize is that their time is now. Don't wait for somebody to approve when they can become a leader, right? You start taking leadership in your school. You take leadership in your home. You take
Yes.
leadership in your community.
That's right.
You develop. The young person that was speaking today, she was talking about business acumen and how does she make the first step.
Mm-hmm.
I said, look, we got people
Mm-hmm.
in our community that can help and direct you,
Yeah.
right? Link up with this person, link up with this person and stuff. But we need a new dynamic in terms of leadership, what it looks like, what it feels like, and who's involved. And that's why I was impressed with what happened on Saturday. And that's why I'm happy to see what's going on in the States now and across the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because the old guard is still hanging on. But while they're hanging on, they're destroying the futures of so many of our young people.
Right.
Right? Like when a black person walks down the street, he should not be walking in fear and despair.
Right.
Because when a white person walks down the street, they're bright-eyed, bushy tails, they're having a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We got a major problem until we fix that. And that means the silent participants have to get involved now. And actions must be their calling card, not words.
Thank you. And that's so true. Stop hiding in the shadows saying, Louis, I support you from way back here, or sending you a little text message saying, Danny, yeah, I'm with you, brother. Well, where are you? Right? Stop being quiet. It's time to speak up and let it be known. Like when you said, if you see injustice, if you see racism or discrimination at your job, at the coffee shop that you go to, anywhere, speak up and say something. That's how you stand side by side and help to end this, right?
It has to be a collaborative effort, a collaboration of individuals, organizations, because clearly the politicians are not going to take the lead on this unless they're forced to. And that's why the public outcry now has to be greater than their denial and their lying, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's at the policing side or at the politician side. The public outcry has to be greater than the approaches that they've taken. And that's what the situation in Minnesota is. The public is coming out. And I don't think it's a one-day wonder or a one-week wonder. I think this is going to continue because the young people have just had enough, right? The old guard has to go and the young people have to step in because this is their time. And we don't need any more brutality. We don't need any more poverty. We don't need any more environmental destruction, right? We need these young peoples to live a life worthy of their existence, whereas too many people are hiding in the shadows right now and losing.
Guys, Louis, we got about 2 minutes left. Everybody, make sure, you hear this guy, make sure you follow Louis March _TO, or you can just click the link in my bio, in my profile, and you can get him. Make sure you follow the work that we're doing with Zero Gun Violence Movement. Again, that link is on my page. But Louis, we got about 1.5 minutes left. What's one thing you want to leave everybody with?
I think united we stand, divided we fall. Danny, you've been a big supporter of the Zero Gun Violence Movement and the work that we're doing. Your encouragement and support is invaluable. I can't put a dollar price on it, right? We've got some incredible people. We just need more incredible people because we will create that space where we can work together in collaboration, right? But it's not only with Zero Gun Violence, it's within your community, within your family. Reach out today, please, and touch somebody and have a positive impact. Continue to provide affirmations to good people because they need it, because the challenges that they go through. So this is not a decision that's going to be made in Queen's Park. It has to be made in your house. You have to ask yourself as an individual, what am I willing to do, right? And if you got any questions and answers, you know the people to go to. We will be there for you. But we need more soldiers. We need a more organized, collaborative effort. And this is the opportunity now to build.
All right. That's it. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Louis, man. Make sure you follow Louis. Thanks so much, Louis. And thank everybody for tuning in. This was a really important conversation. And again, I'm probably going to have to bring Louis back for part 4 or 5. So that's it, everybody. Thanks a lot. I'll see you guys on Friday. Take care.
Happy to do this. Happy to do
Thanks.
this.